The first time Lillian Chambers destroyed my gate, I was dreaming about a place that didn't exist anymore, a dusty, forward operating base outside Fallujah where the sunrise came in shades of orange cordite and the only thing separating us from chaos was a roll of concertina wire and a kid from Omaha who hadn't shaved yet. Then the dream shattered, replaced by the real-world sound of 3 tons of Germany-engineered luxury SUV, treating my private ranch entrance like it was the starting grid at Le Mans. I came awake fast, the way you do when you've spent too many years sleeping with one ear tuned to incoming mortar. My bare feet hit cold hardwood. The pistol was already in my hand before I remembered I wasn't in uniform anymore. By the time I made it to the front porch in nothing but boxer briefs and 20-year-old muscle memory, all I caught was the retreating taillights of a white Lexus RX 350 disappearing down my gravel road, kicking up a rooster tail of caliche dust that hung in the still morning air like smoke after an explosion. The gate, or what was left of it, lay scattered across the cattle guard in a modern art sculpture of twisted steel, splintered cedar, and glittering shards of tempered glass from the reflector posts. The main support beam, a 6x6 treated timber I had poured into 2 feet of concrete myself, was bent at a 45-degree angle like a snapped femur. White paint transfer striped the wreckage in long, arrogant streaks, the automotive equivalent of a dog pissing on a fire hydrant. 4 times. This was the 4th time in 28 days. I stood there barefoot on the cold porch boards, coffee forgotten, feeling the old familiar calm settle over me, the same calm that used to come right before we rolled outside the wire, the calm that meant someone had just volunteered to become a case study. My name is Garrett James Stone, 44 years old, retired military contractor, 20 years moving through some of the worst real estate on planet Earth, doing jobs that officially never happened for people who will never admit I exist. I have seen villages erased, convoys turned into burning scrap, and men who thought they were invincible learn the hard way that physics doesn't care about your ego. I bought this 40-acre ranch outside Austin because the survey said it was mine, the tax rolls said it was mine, and the only voices I wanted to hear before 9 a.m. were cattle and red-winged blackbirds. I paid cash. I put up a proper gate. I hung proper signs. I even sent certified letters to the Hillcrest Estates HOA the day I closed, informing them in polite but unmistakably military language that there was no easement, no right-of-way, and no historical anything that gave them permission to treat my driveway like a county road. Lillian Chambers apparently used my letter to line her cat's litter box. I spent the next 2 hours doing what I used to do after an IED strike: slow, methodical scene documentation. I walked a debris field in widening circles, photographing everything from 6 angles, measuring skid marks, noting paint transfer height 53 inches, exactly the bumper height of a 2023 Lexus RX, and recording the precise angle of impact. By the time the sun cleared the live oaks, I had a complete tactical picture. She always came from the east. She always accelerated in the last 200 yards. She always drifted right, hugging the fence line like it was a security blanket. She never once touched the brakes. Patterns. Beautiful, exploitable, fatal patterns. The sheriff's deputy who finally arrived at 9:17 a.m. took one look at the wreckage, one look at my military ID and concealed carry license when I handed him my driver's license, and gave me the same speech I was already tired of hearing. Mr. Stone, I understand your frustration, but this appears to be a civil dispute over an access easement. The HOA has filed paperwork with the county claiming historical usage. There is no easement, I said, voice flat. I have the survey, I have the title insurance, I have the tax map. He shrugged, the shrug of a man who still had 12 years until retirement and didn't want to spend them fighting the county commissioner's biggest campaign. Donor, take it up with your attorney, sir. We can't get involved in civil matters. He left me his card and a case number that I knew would disappear into the same black hole as the last 3. I watched his cruiser disappear down the same road Lillian had just used as her personal battering ram, and I made a decision right there among the splinters and broken glass. No more reacting. From this moment forward, I would act. I started with coffee black strong, the way we brewed it in the field when we knew the next 72 hours were going to suck. Then I walked the entire perimeter of the ranch on foot, something I hadn't done since the day I bought the place. 40 acres is a lot of ground when you're looking for weak points. I found 3 places where the HOA had already cut my fence and laid down cattle panels to create temporary crossings. I found survey stakes with fresh orange ribbon that definitely did not match my survey. I found tire tracks, always the same tread pattern, always the same aggressive entry angle. By noon, I had a complete intelligence picture of my enemy, Lillian Chambers, bottle blonde, former real estate agent turned full-time HOA tyrant, divorced twice, no kids, lives in a 6,000 square foot McMansion she can't actually afford because she spent the last 15 years strong-arming builders into donating upgrades in exchange for HOA approval, drives a white Lexus with vanity plates that read Queen Bee, volunteers on every committee, chairs most of them, and has the county tax assessor's private cell phone number saved under Mom. Classic creditor profile. overcompensating for deep insecurity with borrowed authority and zero accountability. That afternoon, I drove into Austin and visited 3 places. A structural steel yard off 183 where I bought 24 feet of 8-inch Schedulati pipe and 4 hydraulic drop-in anchors rated for £60,000 shear, paid cash, no questions. A surveying supply company where I bought a professional-grade total station and a stack of aluminum boundary markers. My attorney's office, where I dropped a $10,000 retainer and told him to prepare for war, but not to fire the first shot. Then I came home and started digging, not holes for fence, posts, holes for consequences. I worked only at night, under red headlamps so neighbors wouldn't notice. Each anchor point went 3 feet deep, filled with 4,000 psi concrete reinforced with rebar cages. I welded myself. I kept the forms low, flush with the ground, covered them with plywood and dirt so from the road it looked like normal gate repair after yet another accident. While the concrete cured, I sat on the porch with a legal pad and sketched the trap. Requirements: must appear 100% normal to any reasonable person driving through at legal speed. Must be undetectable to visual inspection from the driver's seat of a Lexus RX. Must immobilize, not injure a vehicle matching Lillian's exact dimensions and driving pattern. Must leave zero plausible deniability when activated by criminal intent. Solution: a pair of converging subsurface rails, buried flush, tapering from 2.4 meters at the entry to 1.75 meters, exactly 18 feet in the precise point where her undercarriage would kiss steel and her ego would break. I ran the numbers 6 different ways. At 40 miles per hour, her vehicle would have approximately 148,000 feet lbs of kinetic energy on impact. My rails would absorb it all without yielding more than 3 millimeters. She would stop in under 0.8 seconds. Airbags would not deploy. Seatbelt pretensioners would barely notice. She would be perfectly safe and perfectly trapped. I slept better that night than I had in years. 3 days later, she came back with friends. I was in the barn loft with binoculars when I saw the convoy crest the hill, white Lexus in the lead, followed by Robert Clark in a black Escalade and Margaret Walsh in a champagne-colored Tahoe. Looked like a presidential motorcade if the president was a middle-aged woman who'd watched too much HGTV and decided democracy was whatever she said it was. They didn't even slow down at the wreckage of the old gate. Lillian floored it, hit the opening, doing 45, and the other 2 followed like ducklings. They parked in my front yard in a perfect V formation, climbed out in sunglasses and clipboards, and began a walking tour of my property like they were thinking of buying it. I watched the whole thing unfold from the hayloft through a Zeiss spotting scope. I once used to call in 155mm rounds on Taliban machine gun nests. Same scope, different target. The magnification was perfect. I could see the individual rhinestones on Lillian's sunglasses and the tremor in Robert Clark's left hand as he tried to look authoritative while standing. In cow shit, they fanned out like they'd rehearsed it. Lillian took point, marching straight toward my front porch with the stride of a woman who had never once in her life been told no and meant no. Robert, 62, Ponch, fighting a losing battle with his Titleist polo, carried the manila folder like it was the nuclear football. Margaret, silver bun so tight it could deflect bullets, held an iPad and narrated everything into a little digital recorder as if she were filming a documentary titled How to Civilize the Peasants. I let them get within 50 yards of the house before I stepped out of the barn. Hands visible, palms open, voice calm but carrying the same tone I once used to order a platoon to fix bayonets. Good morning. You are currently trespassing on private property. You just destroyed what was left of my gate. I need all 3 of you to return to your vehicles and leave immediately. Lillian stopped 10 feet away and gave me the smile real estate agents reserve for clients they've already decided are too stupid to understand. Comps, Garrett Stone, I presume. She didn't wait for confirmation. Lillian Chambers, Community Director, Hillcrest Estates, Homeowners Association. This is Robert Clark, our Legal Compliance Officer, and Margaret Walsh, Community Relations Coordinator. We're here to conduct an official survey of the disputed community access corridor. She pronounced disputed the way a prosecuting attorney says guilty. I looked past her at the fresh tire furrows, carving ruts across my zoysia grass, at the splintered remains of the gates now scattered like pickup sticks, at the 3 luxury SUVs parked in my yard with their engines still ticking as they cooled. Ma'am, there is no dispute. This is private property. You have committed criminal mischief in front of 2 witnesses. Leave now or I'm calling the sheriff. Robert cleared his throat and stepped forward, puffing up like a rooster who'd read one too many John Grisham novels. Mr. Stone, under Municipal Code 1427B, subsection Alpha, the association retains documented historical prescriptive easement rights across this parcel dating back to 1987. We have affidavits from no fewer than 11 longtime residents confirming continuous community usage for and emergency access purposes. He tried to hand me the folder. I didn't take it. I want copies mailed to my attorney through proper channels, not hand-delivered by people who just committed a felony on my land. Margaret chimed in with the syrupy voice teachers use on slow children. Mr. Stone, we truly want to work with you. Adversarial postures only hurt property values for everyone. The community has rights here that predate your purchase. Surely a reasonable man like yourself. I cut her off without raising my voice. Reasonable men don't ram other people's gates with their SUV. You have 60 seconds to be off my property. Lillian's smile finally cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it. You'll find, Mr. Stone, she said, voice suddenly arctic, that the association possesses resources you clearly do not comprehend. This easement is not going away because you built a little fence and hung some signs. We have ways of dealing with uncooperative owners. She let the threat hang in the air like cordite. I smiled back, not the friendly kind. 30 seconds. They left exactly 28 seconds later, but not before Lillian walked a slow victory lap around my house, pointing at the barn, the equipment shed, the stock tank, narrating the whole thing into her phone like she was already planning the landscaping changes. I stood on the porch and watched them go, memorizing every detail. The way Robert kept checking his rearview mirror, the way Margaret clutched her iPad like a shield, the way Lillian never once looked back after she floored it, through the wreckage again on her way out. That night, I poured the last of the concrete footings. 4 anchors, 3 feet deep, each filled with 5,000 Quickcrete and a cage of half-inch rebar I welded myself. I worked by red light so the glow wouldn't carry. The neighbors who drove by just saw a man repairing his gate after yet another unfortunate accident. They waved. I waved back. Inside the barn, I laid out the steel rails for the first time, 24 feet of 8-inch Schedule 80 pipe, cut, beveled, and welded into 2 perfect tapers. Entry width 2.45 meters, plenty of room for my own F250 or a hay delivery truck going slow. Exit width, at the 18-foot mark, 1.76 meters, exactly 34 centimeters narrower than a Lexus RX Mirror 2 mirror. I ran the math again on my laptop using finite element analysis software I still had from clearing routes in Helmand. The rails would deflect less than 4 millimeters under 200,000 feet lbs of impact. Her SUV weighed 4,800 lbs. At 40 miles per hour, it would carry roughly 171,000 feet lbs. Close enough. She would stop. She would not flip. She would not be injured. She would be trapped 14 feet inside my property line with no plausible explanation except I was trying to destroy this man's gate. Again, I slept like a baby. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in escalation. Monday morning, a drone buzzed my house for 40 minutes. Professional-grade DJI with a local surveying company uses. I waved at it. Saved the footage from my own security cameras. Monday afternoon, a certified letter arrived. Notice of daily fines. $500 a day for obstructing community access until I removed all gates and barriers. Tuesday morning, 2 guys in reflective vests showed up with a backhoe and started digging beside my mailbox. I walked out with a shotgun across my arms, unloaded, perfectly legal, and asked if they had a county permit. They did not. They left fast. Tuesday night, someone egged my barn and spray-painted open the road in dripping red letters across the equipment shed. Wednesday, I installed 6 new 4K cameras with 180 cloud backup and motion-triggered floodlights, bright enough to land aircraft. Thursday, the professional inspection team arrived. 3 white vans, county-looking logos, clipboards, the whole theater production. They spent 5 hours photographing every square inch of my fence line, flying the drone again, taking soil samples, even hammering little orange flags into the ground every 10 feet like they were claiming territory for Spain. I walked out calm and asked for credentials, got the same rehearsed speech about community impact assessments and environmental review protocols. When I asked for the actual easement map, the lead guy, mid-30s, soul patch, attitude, smirked and said, "That'll be provided in discovery, sir." Translation: sue us and find out. They left behind another certified letter threatening liens, foreclosure assistance programs, and escalation to state regulatory authorities. I added everything to the file. Friday, I finished welding the rails. Saturday, I pressure washed the barn covering the graffiti, repainted it barn red, and hung a new hand-carved cedar sign above the door that read, "Trespassers will be EDRC'd, will be EDRC." 10 morning, she came alone. I was in the kitchen grinding beans when I heard the engine note climb like an F-16 on takeoff. I stepped onto the porch just in time to see the white Lexus crest the rise, doing at least 50. She never touched the brakes. The front bumper took out the temporary cattle panel I'd put up as a placeholder, kept going, and buried itself in the last standing 6'6" post with a sound like God dropping a refrigerator. Concrete exploded across the driveway in gray shrapnel. The post snapped at ground level. The Lexus came to rest with its nose 10 feet inside my property line, radiator hissing, airbags still in their housings because she'd somehow managed to miss triggering them. Lillian climbed out smiling. Actually smiling. She took selfies with the destruction, then turned and shouted toward the house like she knew I was watching. "Safety hazard documented. We'll have a crew out tomorrow to remove this dangerous obstruction." I walked down slow, phone recording in 4K. "Lillian, you just committed felony criminal mischief on camera again." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Garrett, You still don't get it. The HOA's legal fund has 7 figures. My attorney golfs with the judge. You're going to open this road or we're going to take your ranch out from under you one fine at a time. I asked one last time for the easement documents. She hugged the folder to her chest like it was the original Magna Carta. You'll to see them in court, she hissed, smile finally gone. After we've buried you in paperwork and liens you can't pay. She climbed back into the Lexus, reversed over the wreckage, and left a fresh set of furrows across my grasp on her way out. That night I finished the trap. I worked until 3 a.m. laying the rails exactly 1/8 inch below grade, welding cross-bracing every 4 feet, backfilling with road base and caliche so it looked like normal driveway. Then I laid weathered 212 planks over the entire thing, screwed them down with decking screws painted to match, and scattered hay and dirt until you couldn't tell where. The trap ended, and the rest of the ground began. From the road it looked like I had simply rebuilt the gate area stronger after the accident. Only someone with X-ray vision would know there was now a set of steel jaws waiting 8 feet inside the opening. I pressure tested it with my own truck at 12 miles per hour, rolled right through at 20 miles per hour, still clear at 30 miles per hour while deliberately hugging the right side. Felt a slight tug, but nothing dramatic. 40 miles per hour hugging the right side. Game over. I slept for hours, woke up, made coffee, and waited for Sunday, because people like Lillian don't quit. When they think they're winning, they come back to gloat, and when they do, physics is waiting with an overdue education. I have always believed that the week before a major operation is the most dangerous week of all, not because the enemy is strongest then, because the mind is every variable has been calculated, every contingency rehearsed, every weld trip. After that, the only thing left is waiting, and waiting is when doubt creeps in wearing the uniform of reason. So I filled the days with noise. Monday drove into Austin, and spent 6 hours at the county clerk's office pulling every plat, every deed, every subdivision filing since 1953. I walked out with a banker's box full of certified copies and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that Hillcrest Estates' historical easement was a fairy tale someone had typed up in Microsoft Word 6 months ago and backdated to look authentic. The real 1987 plat showed my 40 acres as a single agricultural parcel with zero income. I made color scans, notarized everything, and mailed packets to my attorney, the Sheriff's Civil Division, and the Texas Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. Paper trails matter. Tuesday I replaced every fence post along the frontage with 8-inch creosoted poles set in for thousands of concrete. I hung new reflective private property no trespassing signs every 30 feet, 6 feet off the ground, in English and Spanish, with the statute numbers printed underneath in 72-point font. Then I mounted 2 more 4,000 cameras on 20-foot poles with solar chargers and cellular uplink. If a squirrel farted within 200 yards of my gate, it was going on the cloud in 10-bit color. Wednesday the fines letter arrived, $14,500, accrued and counting. I framed it and hung it in the barn next to my old deployment. Plaques. Motivation. Thursday a process server in a cheap suit tried to hand me a temporary restraining order, forcing me to cease and desist all obstruction of the community thoroughfare. I refused service. Made him read the statute out loud that says you can't serve papers on private property without permission, then escorted him back to his Prius at a leisurely pace while my new cameras recorded every second. He left sweating. Friday pressure tested the trap for the final time. I borrowed my neighbor Carlos's 1998 F350 dually wides, lifted 37-inch tires, mirrors folded in. That truck is 2.34 meters wide. I ran it through the funnel at 35 miles per hour, hugging the right side exactly the way Lillian always does. Felt a slight scrape on the right running board. Nothing dramatic. Kept rolling. Perfect. An honest person driving carefully would feel a tug and back off. Someone trying to blast through at 40 while glued to the fence line. Physics would collect the tuition. Saturday I landscaped. I hauled in 20 tons of crushed granite and built what looked like a decorative entryway, 2 rustic stone pillars flanking the opening, weathered cedar crossbeam overhead with a carved sign that read, Stone Ranch, EST 2022, between the pillars. I laid the final layer of camouflage, 2 times 12 planks stained to match the pillars, spaced exactly like a cattle guard but hiding the steel rails underneath. I scattered hay, horse manure, even parked my tractor right in the middle for a few hours so the tire tracks would sell the illusion that this was just normal ranch traffic. From the road it looked welcoming. From the driver's seat of a speeding Lexus it looked like victory. Saturday night I sat on the porch with a glass of Maker's Mark and watched the sunset paint the hills blood orange. Somewhere out there Lillian was polishing her ego, convincing herself that one more show of force would finally break me. I raised my glass to the empty road and spoke out loud to no one. Come on, sweetheart, one more time. For old time's sake. Sunday morning I woke at 5:47 a.m. without an alarm. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant lowing of cattle. I made coffee, took a shower, dressed in the same clothes I wear to church when I bother going, pressed Wranglers, starched pearl snap shirt, boots polished the night before. Then I carried my coffee to the porch, set up a tripod with a GoPro pointed at the gate, and waited. The neighborhood started stirring around 7:30. Mrs. Hernandez walking her ancient beagle, the Jensens out for their Sunday jog with the double stroller, old man Peterson on his golf cart with a yappy terrier riding shotgun. All of them glanced at the new stone pillars, gave me a wave, kept moving. They had no idea they were about to become unpaid extras in the most satisfying viral video Central Texas would ever see all year. 8:12 a.m., a drone buzzed overhead again, same surveying company markings. I gave it the finger with a smile, saved the clip. 8:47 a.m., Deputy Morrison drove by slow, tipped his hat. I'd sent him the entire evidence packet the week before with a polite cover letter. He hadn't answered, but he hadn't ignored it either. I took the hat tip as acknowledgement. 9:23a.m. The white Lexus appeared on the ridge a half-mile out, sun glinting off the windshield like a signal flare. I stood up, stretched, checked the GoPro battery one last time, and walked down the porch steps slow enough that the cameras caught every second. She crested the rise doing at least 60 on the county road, braked hard, then floored it again the moment her tires hit my gravel. Dust exploded behind her like a jet wash. I could see her through the windshield, shoulders squared, chin-high, mouth set in that same triumphant sneer she'd worn the single time she destroyed my gate. 40 miles an hour. 40-5.50. The Lexus hit the decorative entryway doing 50 to my radar gun recorded it later. Front tires dropped perfectly between the stone pillars. For 2 full seconds the trap did absolutely nothing. Just let her feel the sweet illusion of another easy win. Then the rails began their silent work. The right side tires followed the gentle taper, exactly the way I knew they would. The undercarriage dropped a fraction, kissed steel, and the laws of physics took over from there. 18 feet inside my property line, the rails narrowed to 1.76 meters and the Lexus stopped like it had hit a brick wall made of time itself. The engine screamed. All four tires spun in mid-air. The horn blared when her forehead kissed the steering wheel. No airbag, just like I calculated. Closing parenthesis. And Lillian Chambers, Queen of Hillcrest Estates, discoverer that some gates bite back, was suddenly, gloriously, perfectly trapped. I walked down the driveway at a leisurely pace, coffee still in hand, letting the neighborhood gather. Mrs. Hernandez was first, then the Jensens, then Peterson, who actually parked the golf cart and let the terrier out to watch. Within 4 minutes, I had 23 spectators, 17 phones recording, and one very expensive German SUV doing its best impression of a beached whale. Lillian rolled the window down with shaking hands. "What the hell did you do to my car?" she screamed, voice cracking for the first time in recorded history. I stopped 10 feet away, calm as Sunday morning. "Good morning, Lillian. Looks like you're having a little trouble with the community access route. This is entrapment. This is assault. I'm suing you for everything you have." I smiled the small, polite smile I used to give Taliban elders right before we confiscated their Toyota Hiluxes. "Ma'am, you are currently trespassing on private property. You entered at 52 miles an hour with clear intent to destroy my gate. Infrastructure again. Multiple witnesses are recording. I'm going to ask you once to turn off the engine and step out of the vehicle." She tried reverse. The rails held. She tried forward. The rails laughed. She laid on the horn like it was going to summon the HOA cavalry. It didn't. At precisely 9:37 a.m. I dialed 911 on speaker so everyone could hear. "Travis County Sheriff's Office. What is your emergency? This is Garrett Stone at 42 Oakwood Ranch Road. I have an individual who just rammed my gate at high speed and is now immobilized on my private property. I need a deputy for trespassing and vandalism. I have video." The dispatcher's voice stayed professional, but I heard the smile. "Units are en route, sir. 88 minutes. Lillian lost what was left of her mind. 8 minutes later, Deputy Morrison arrived with 2 backup units and a tow truck, already on standby. He took one look at the Lexus pinned perfectly between my stone pillars, tires 2 feet off the ground, engine still screaming, and shook his head the way a man does when Christmas came early morning. "Mr. Stone, morning deputy, mind walking me through this?" I handed him a thumb drive. 4 months of footage, certified survey, title docs, all of it. She's on my side of the property line by 14 feet. Speed was 52. He didn't even try to hide the grin. "Ma'am," he called up to Lillian, "kill the engine and step out with your hands visible." She refused to. They called the fire department to cut the door off with the jaws of life while the entire neighborhood live streamed it. By noon, the video had 400,000 views on the neighborhood Facebook group alone. By 6 p.m. it was on every local news station's lead story. By Monday morning, Lillian Chambers was no longer HOA president. Her Lexus was in an impound lot with a crushed frame, and my attorney was fielding calls from 3 different insurance companies begging to settle before I filed suit. I took the steel rails out the following weekend, cut them into 6-foot sections, hauled them to the scrapyard, and used the money to buy every neighbor who had filmed the event, a steak dinner. Some battles you win with bullets, some you win with concrete, patience, and the immutable laws of physics. This one was the second kind, and it felt better than any firefight. Monday, 6:03 a.m. My phone started exploding before I even poured the first cup of coffee. 47 missed calls, 112 text messages, 9 voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize, 1 voicemail from my attorney that simply said, "Call me. Bring bourbon." I called him. "Garrett," he said without saying hello, "you just became the most famous private citizen in Travis County." The video is at 4.7 million views on TikTok alone. Someone overlaid it with the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme, and it's the #1 trending sound. Fox, CNN, and News Nation all want interviews. The Travis County DA just announced he's personally reviewing the case, and Lillian's insurance carrier called me at home. They want to settle before lunch. I told him I'd think about it after coffee. 7:30 a.m. Deputy Morrison stopped by in person, still in uniform, carrying a box of donuts from Round Rock Donuts like we were old war buddies. Off the record, he said, handing me an apple fritter the size of a hubcap. Half the department has that video saved as their ringtone now. The other half are pissed they didn't get to be the one to cuff her. He told me the charges had been upgraded overnight. Criminal trespass Class A, criminal mischief over $30,000 state jail felony, reckless driving, and the DA was considering filing organized criminal activity. Because of the inspection team and fake paperwork, Lillian had spent 6 hours in county lockup before her attorney finally showed up with $25,000 cash bail. She was released at 4:12 a.m. wearing an orange jumpsuit and no makeup. Someone leaked the booking photo. It was brutal. 9 a.m. the HOA held an emergency Zoom meeting with 187 households logged in. I wasn't invited, but 3 different neighbors screened it and sent me the file. You could actually watch the empire crumble in real time. Robert Clark tried to chair the meeting and got shouted down within 30 seconds. Margaret Walsh attempted her soothing "let's all be reasonable" voice and got muted by the host. Then Mrs. Hernandez, the 82-year-old widow with the ancient beagle, took the floor and said, in Spanish and English, "I have lived here 41 years. Never once did we drive through that ranch until that woman told us we could. She lied to us. She bullied us. And now she is in jail. We remove Lillian Chambers from the board immediately and permanently." The vote was 179-3 with 5 abstentions. The 3 holdouts were Robert, Margaret, and one guy who wasn't paying attention and voted yes on accident. By 9:47 a.m. Lillian Chambers was no longer president, director, or even allowed to use the community pool. 11:15 a.m. a black Suburban with government plates pulled up. 2 very serious men in inexpensive suits got out. FBI. They were investigating wire fraud and mail fraud angles because the fake easement documents had been notarized, recorded at the county, and used to extort fines. They wanted my entire file. I gave them 2 copies and kept the original. 1 p.m. the first news van showed up, then the second. By 3 p.m. I had 6 satellite trucks parked on the county road. I put up a new sign on a hay bale. Media, please stay on public right or freightress passes will be educated again. They thought it was hilarious and used it as the beer shot. 4:30 p.m. Lillian's attorney, a very expensive man in a $5,000 suit and the facial expression of someone who just realized his client is radioactive, showed up with a cashier's check for $87,500 and a settlement agreement that basically said, "We will pay for everything and never speak of this again." I told him I'd think about it after dinner. Tuesday, the insurance company upped the offer to $150,000 and agreed to replace my gate with whatever I wanted. No questions asked. I ordered a custom 20-foot powder-coated steel ranch gate from a fab shop in Llano that normally builds prison doors. They gave me the local hero discount. Wednesday, the Travis County Commissioner called personally and asked if there was anything the county could do to make this right. I suggested they fixed the potholes on Oakwood Ranch Road. They started work the next morning. Thursday, house went on the market at 38% below comps. The listing photos had been taken before the arrest, so she was still smiling in the kitchen. The agent turned off the comments section on Zillow after 12 hours. Friday, the new interim HOA board showed up in person. 5 nervous people carrying a basket of homemade banana bread and a formal letter of apology signed by 143 households. They begged me to attend the next meeting as a guest of honor. I told them I'd think about it after the new gate was installed. Saturday, I took the steel rails out. I rented a concrete saw, cut the planks into firewood, pulled the rails with a chain and my tractor, and loaded everything into a 40-yard dumpster I'd had delivered. Then I hauled the dumpster to the scrapyard myself and watched them feed 14 tons of consequences into the crusher. The money paid for a new rifle, a side-by-side, and a hell of a party. Sunday, exactly 1 week after the trap sprang, I hosted a barbecue for the entire neighborhood. I rented 2 of those big Santa Maria grills, hired a butcher from Salt Lake to cook brisket all night, and turned the front pasture into a packing lot. More than 200 people showed up: kids, dogs, folding chairs, coolers. Somebody brought a bounce house. Somebody else brought a mechanical bull. Somebody set up a projector on the side of my barn and we watched the video on loop with the Benny Hill theme instead of the original. AUDIO, Mrs. Hernandez gave a speech in Spanish that had half the crowd crying. Old man Peterson got drunk and confessed he'd always hated Lillian but was too scared to say anything. The Jensen's toddler peed on my boot and everyone cheered like it was a christening. Around midnight, the new HOA president, a quiet accountant named David Park who nobody had ever noticed before, clinked a beer bottle and asked for "Quiet, Garrett," he said. "We took a vote. From now on, the community gate code is your military service number, and if anyone ever changes it without your permission, the rest of us will personally come help you build another trap." Everyone cheered so loud the cattle spooked. I looked around at all of them, people who had been afraid of one woman for 15 years, now laughing and eating brisket on my grass. And I felt something loosen in my chest I hadn't realized was knotted later, when the fire was down to embers and the kids were asleep on blankets. Deputy Morrison pulled me aside. "Off the record," he said. "The DA's offering her a plea, probation, restitution, permanent no-contact order. She'll take it. Case like this, with that video, trial would be a circus." I nodded. Justice doesn't always need a cage. Sometimes it just needs daylight. 2 weeks later, the new gate arrived, 20 feet wide, 8 feet tall, powder-coated bronze, with a solar-powered opener and a call box that plays Willie Nelson when you push the button. I mounted a bronze plaque on the left pillar that reads, "In memory of Common." The sensor stood 202. 5 people take selfies with it now. Lillian moved to Scottsdale or maybe Florida. Nobody cared enough to find out. Her house sold to a young family from California who asked me the first week if they could lease 5 acres for their horses. I said yes. They pay on time and wave every morning. The HOA rewrote the bylaw. Board members now serve 1-year terms. No one can serve more than twice in a row, and any fine over $100 requires a supermajority vote plus public notice. They also voted to abolish the Architectural Review Committee because, as David Park put it, we're done telling people what color their mailbox can be. Still drink coffee on the porch every morning. The road is quiet. The cattle graze right up to the fence. And somewhere out there is a woman who learned that some lines aren't meant to be crossed because every once in a while, the line crosses back. Asterisk. The plea deal was signed on a Tuesday in late October. Lillian Chambers stood in front of Judge Alvarez in a navy suit 2 sizes too big. She'd lost 25 pounds in jail waiting for trial and pleaded no contest to criminal mischief and reckless endangerment. The prosecutor asked for 90 days in county jail. The judge gave her 5 years deferred adjudication, 500 hours community service, a permanent criminal no-contact order with me and my property, and restitution in an amount to be determined by civil settlement or jury verdict, whichever comes first. Translation: pay whatever Garrett asks or roll the dice with. 12 very entertained Travis County citizens who have already watched the video 400 times. Her attorney tried to argue that the trap constituted an attractive nuisance. The judge literally laughed out loud, then cited Texas Penal Code 9.4 to deadly force in defense of property and said, "Counsel, the defendant was neither killed nor injured. She was merely educated." Motion denied. The courtroom gallery, half of whom were my barbecue guests, gave the judge a standing ovation. He pretended to gavel for order and then let it run for 30 full seconds. State Farm cut the check the same week, $312,000 after my attorney's 33%. I used part of it to buy the 200 acres directly south of me that came up for sale when the old rancher passed. Paid cash, closed in 12 days. Suddenly I owned 240 contiguous acres and the only road frontage for 3 miles in any direction. Funny how that works. I turned the new land into a cow-calf operation and hired Carlos's oldest son Mateo to run it day to day. Gave him a salary, a new truck, and 10% of the calf crop. He cried when I handed him the keys. His dad just shook my hand and said, "You gave my boy what I never could. We are square for life." Lillian's civil trial was scheduled for the following spring, but nobody thought it would get that far. Her insurance company hired 3 different engineering firms to inspect the trap remains. All 3 came back with the same conclusion. The device was passive, required active aggression to trigger, and caused 0 bodily injury. One of them, a professor from UT, actually wrote in his report, "An elegant application of Newtonian mechanics to the problem of repeated criminal trespass. Recommend publication in the Journal of Forensic Engineering." I framed that one too. Spring came early that year. The wildflowers were insane. I built a new hay barn out of limestone and cedar, big enough for 3,000 round bales and a built-in apartment. Upstairs for Mateo while the crew was pouring the slab, a black F-150 with Arizona plates pulled up. A man in his late 30s got out with his wife and 2 little girls. Turned out they'd bought Lillian's old house sight unseen off the foreclosure listing. He introduced himself as Ryan Delgado, former Marine Infantry, 0311, 2 tours in Sang. Said his wife saw the viral video, recognized the ranch gate in the background shots of the listing, and told him, "That's the neighborhood I want to raise our daughters in." We shook hands for a long time. Ryan and I became friends the way only two guys who've kicked doors in Helmand can. He helped me brand calves. I helped him put up a swing set. His oldest daughter calls me Uncle Garrett and rides in the tractor with me every Saturday. The Texas legislature took notice. A state representative from Houston filed HB 3188, the Garrett-Stone Act, which explicitly allows Texas landowners to use non-lethal immobilization devices against repeat criminal trespassers provided certain conditions are met: clear signage, no intent to injure, etc. It passed 142-3 with bipartisan support and was signed on the steps of the Capitol. While I stood awkwardly in the background, holding a cowboy hat, I didn't know what to do. With the governor's speech lasted 7 minutes. The video clip of him saying some boundaries bite back lasted forever. I got married. Her name is Dr. Elena Morales, trauma surgeon at Del Seaton. We met when a bull threw me into a cedar post and I refused stitches from anyone except the meanest doc in the trauma bay. She stitched me up while calling me an idiot in both English and Spanish, then asked me to dinner. 6 months later, she moved into the ranch. A year after that, we got married under the live oaks with 300 guests, a mariachi band, and a brisket buffet that ran out at 2 a.m. Elena keeps her maiden name at work but had Morale Stone engraved on the new mailbox. Said it sounded like a law firm that could kick your ass. The ranch hit 1,000 mama cows. We built a second house on the south pasture for Mateo and his growing family. Ryan and his wife bought the 20 acres next door and built a barn. Suddenly my dirt road had 3 families who would take a bullet for each other and zero interest in ever forming another. HOA. We started a tradition. Every Memorial Day weekend we shut the gate, open the pasture to any Gold Star family who wants to camp, fish, ride horses, or just sit by the fire and talk. No charge, no questions, no paperwork. Just quiet land and people who understand what it cost. Lillian surfaced again. A process server found me at the feed store in Liberty Hill. She'd filed a $5 million civil suit in Maricopa County, Arizona, claiming PTSD, loss of earning capacity, and permanent psychological damage from the incident. My attorney laughed so hard he dropped his phone. We countersued for malicious prosecution, abuse of process, and defamation. Arizona has an anti-SLAPP statute with mandatory attorney fees. 6 weeks later, the judge threw her case out with prejudice and ordered her to pay our legal bills. She declared bankruptcy the next month. The trustee liquidated everything: the Scottsdale condo, the Lexus still not fixed, even her Kate Spade purse collection. The bankruptcy auction raised $187,000 after priority claims. Exactly $11,412.63 was left. The trustee mailed me a check for $11,412.63 with a post-it that read, "Karma, please endorse." I framed the check, didn't cash it, hung it in the barn next to the Journal of Forensic Engineering article. Present. Deo close enough. I'm sitting on the same porch where this whole thing started, coffee going cold in my hand, watching the sun come up over 240 acres. I fought for with concrete and patience instead of blood. Alina is asleep inside. Our son James Riley Morales Stone is 2.5 and currently convinced that John Deere Gator is a race car. Our daughter Sophia arrived 3 months ago and already has her mother's glare when she's hungry. The gate is open this morning because Ryan's kids are coming over to help move cattle and Mateo's wife is bringing breakfast tacos. The call box still plays Willie Nelson, but nobody ever uses it anymore. They just wave at the camera and I buzz them through. There's a new sign on the left pillar now, hand-carved by Ryan out of a single piece of mesquite. Stone Ranches 2022. Home of the last gate you'll ever unaid. Underneath it, in smaller letters, trespassers will be prosecuted. Friends will be fed. He kept one piece of the original trap, just one 6-foot section of rail. I welded it into a bench that sits under the big live oak by the stock tank. There's a bronze plaque bolted to it that reads, "In memory of Arrogance, 1998-2025. She thought the land was hers. The land disagreed sometimes. When the light is right and the wind is still." I sit on that bench with Alina and the kids and watch the cattle graze, and I think about a white Lexus that learned physics the hard way, about a woman who thought boundaries were just suggestions, and about how the quietest victories are the ones that echo the longest. The road is peaceful. Now the coffee is hot, and somewhere out there, in whatever passes for Lillian Chambers' life these days, I hope she still flinches every time she hears the sound of a cattle guard, because some lessons you only have to teach once. I am 50 years old today. The sun came up the same way it has every morning for the last decade. Slow, orange, quiet. I sat on the porch with coffee gone cold hours ago and watched the light crawl across the pastures until it touched the bronze plaque on the left pillar. Stone Ranches 2022, home of the last gate you'll ever unaid. Someone, probably Ryan's oldest boy, added fresh Sharpie beneath the official engraving. Uncle Garrett is cooler than Batman. I left it there. Behind me, the screen door creaked. Alina padded out in my old Marine Corps sweatshirt and bare feet, Sophia on her hip. James trailing behind, dragging his blanket and a plastic cowboy hat 2 sizes too big. "Happy birthday, old man," Alina said, kissing the top of my head. Old is relative, I answered. I can still outrun both of you. James looked up seriously. Daddy, can we open the big gate today? Every year on my birthday we do the same thing. We open the main gate wide, rope off the driveway, and let the whole county come through for a ranch day. No invitations, no RSVP, no cost. Just brisket, beer, horses, hay rides, and a mechanical bull that is thrown 3 different mayors. By noon we had 400 people. By 2 o'clock we had 600 by for the line of trucks, stretched half a mile down the county road, and the sheriff's department had to send 2 deputies just to direct traffic. I spent the afternoon giving tractor rides to kids who had never seen a cow in person. Alina ran the first aid tent, mostly sunburn, and one kid who tried to rope a longhorn steer and learned physics early. Ryan and Mateo manned the smokers. Mrs. Hernandez, now 92 and still sharp as a tack, sat under the live oak in a rocking chair and told anyone who would listen how she watched that loca mujer get taught a lesson she would never forget. At sunset we turned off all the generators and let the string lights come on by themselves. Somebody started playing Robert Earl Keen on the big speakers. Kids chased fireflies. Old men told lies about the weather. A group of teenagers I didn't recognize asked if they could film a TikTok in front of the famous pillars. I told them only if they promised to tag it #SomeBoundaries bite back. They did. At 10:17 p.m. the last truck pulled out. Ryan and Mateo and I stood at the gate waving goodbye like airport greeters. When the taillights disappeared around the bend, Ryan handed me a beer. You ever think we'd end up here? He asked. I looked at the pillars, at the plaque, at the ranch road stretching dark and quiet under a full Texas moon, every damn day. I said, Year 12. The letter, it came in a plain white envelope with no return address. Postmarked Phoenix. Inside was a single sheet of cheap notebook paper and a cashier's check for $11,412.63. The exact amount from the bankruptcy auction I never cashed. The handwriting was shaky but legible, Mr. Stone. I have spent 12 years being angry at you, at the judge, at the internet, at myself. I was wrong. I let power go to my head and I hurt people who never deserved it. I lied to neighbors who trusted me. I destroyed your property and your peace because I thought rules were for other people.